Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of speaking to some of the best global marketing leaders across the world. I am streaming in here from San Francisco Bay Area and very, very excited to have someone really special with me on the show today. We have Rick Ton. Rick, I would like to call Rick as a growth marketing, demand generation, go to market leader who has had a fantastic career in marketing, working in leadership positions as the senior director for growth marketing at Meta in his last role. Before that, Rick led Clutter's marketing as a VP of marketing, all up to the merger with Iron Mountain. And before that, he led the marketing and very special thing that's with the behavioral science aspect. We're going to jump in much deeper later at Walmart. A great career, and thanks, Rick, for being here on the show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to meet your audience.
Awesome. So, Rick, I'd say we usually have this format of us going with your personal, professional, AI, and everything about that, with the last part being more fun part with the rapid fire bit coming up. But I'd love to start and pass the baton to you to tell us more about yourself. Where do you grow up? How did life start for you? How did you land up into marketing? I don't think anyone plans a career in marketing. Most of them don't, and they eventually land up into it. But I'd love to know your story of how did it all start and how did it land up here?
Yeah, so I grew up right outside of Chicago in a suburb called Bolingbrook. So if you're from Chicago, and if you say you're from the city, you have to be born in Chicago. I'm not. I grew up right outside. My parents had me actually when they were 18, and my brother was 16, so they're teenage parents. I grew up, middle class background. Went to school and university in downtown Chicago, a university called DePaul. I was head of household at the age of 18, so I had to do work by day and by night. Went to school. I was originally a computer science major, and I switched over to IS. I went to a small startup by the name of Transora, and I mostly was doing back end QA work. And I built this feature and helped them kind of grow the number of items in their catalog. And they said, "Hey, you should market this." So I switched over to marketing. Didn't have much of experience there.
This is what year though?
This was in early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yes.
Nice.
So super early. I really enjoyed the pieces. I found that the marketing team was way more fun than different teams. So from there, I kind of went over to advertising agencies. I actually spent some time in Romania, Bulgaria, and Germany, working for different ad companies there as well. Came back, went to Walgreens, jumped over to Under Armour, and then went over to Walmart, Sam's Club, then to Clutter, and then finally to Meta.
That's amazing. And I mean, did you plan that you wanted to do marketing when you started? Of course, you were asked to just market a product, but like, what did you like about marketing the most that you thought of just pursuing the career, or was it not planned and you just kept moving?
It wasn't planned. For me early in, I think like many people, you try to figure out what is most fun and things that will help shape you and help drive income for you. So for me, I could have went down the route of being, a back-end engineer or just engineer. And I found a lot more rewarding to kind of work on the creative aspects, helping launch things. I helped launch like the things like the snack wrap. It's actually back again. So I actually launched that a long time ago, and I just found it a lot more exciting work to do.
Very interesting. And I think your career spans a lot of B2B and B2C both. I think we're going to dive deeper into as we move ahead in the conversation. But I want to quickly start with one very unique thing that I saw when I was looking at your profile, right? Which is you have had a great experience on the behavioral sciences front, along with marketing, which I think a lot of people lack in terms of understanding, and then they have to hire relevant partners, vendors, etc. to kind of get that right. I want to first make the audience understand what is the relation between marketing and behavioral sciences in the most layman terms, and then how was your experience at Walmart managing the both of these parts, particularly for marketing, because you're playing with like probably the most amount of data that comes into Walmart, right? So you have like the best trend lines that you can learn from when it comes to behavioral sciences. Any unique insights about that particular field? Love to get.
Yeah, so I was really blessed to work with so many different talented and diverse group of individuals while at Walmart. I actually inherited that team.
Uh,
There was someone who was kind of managing the team, and the leader left to go work on creating NGO. And they were trying to find different places for the team. So, within some behavioral science teams across different organizations, they're mostly doing primary research, but they were not applying their work to like kind of day-to-day things. So I took over that team. We ended up calling it Applied Behavioral Sciences, and we started deploying them as part of the regular marketing team. So one of the things that behavioral scientists and economists provide is like a set of unique tools and skills that could be applied to the organization. So when we thought about integrating, we thought about less around like the marketing funnel, like how do you actually activate campaigns. We thought about more along the lines of like, what's the mission and purpose that you're actually trying to drive. So uniquely, when you think about those types of people, behavioral scientists, economists, they're not thinking about strictly around marketing KPIs.
right.
And then marketers aren't speaking about their areas. So the way we decided to unify these things is think about mission or purpose driven. So I'll give you a few examples of how we thought about it at Walmart/Sam's Club. So we thought about, how can we as a mission or purpose help people help customers save. We think about integrating the teams. How do you help save customers and employees time? How do you help save customers money? And then how do you improve your competitive position with the marketplace?
Right.
So when you think about like those aspects there, like there's some things around saving customers' times, things that like convenience or sales prices are really crucial towards that. And you could have different teams think about how to deploy those strategies.
Right.
In terms of like how we actually operate it as a daily basis, we had like a collective group where we build and test hypothesis, we would measure our progress, and then we would so on and so forth iterate. There's a bunch of different and significant impact that came out of that. So primarily where we were spending our time is on the Sam's Club business. So Sam's Club, like Costco, is a membership-based business.
Right.
So we had like very deep and significant impact on membership renewal. We the behavioral science and economics teams, the marketing teams unified to go work on things like auto renew. So funny enough, that's a huge piece in terms of membership businesses, but it hasn't, and it's very common for like Netflix,
Right.
Hulu, and others, but it's not really common how you apply those
Really
techniques
retail,
for retail. We also worked on trial and frequency of convenience offerings. So there was a feature within Sam's Club called Scan and Go, where you essentially scan items, check out, and because of Sam's Club has an exit greeter, it's uniquely positioned to be able to allow people to have their own version of self-checkout. But early on, we were trying to drive adoption of that application. You're trying to think about different ways to get people to trial the offering. And I will say, when they tried the product, it was just amazing. During COVID, pickup and delivery became really big, and you wanted to kind of exit people to different areas. So we were using a lot of different techniques that we had developed across the team to be able to drive trial and just that stickiness. At the same time, there was unique aspects when projects we were deployed towards, store optimization, store openings. There was a store format called Sam's Club Now, which is essentially a no cashiers experience. The team is very deeply involved in how you set that up. How do you make that a good experience for shoppers?
Very interesting. So what I understand from this is you've had like a good combination of a left brain and a right brain thought process, where the left brain actually told you from the data and the insights of what is to be solved and how, and the right brain was more the creative fuel on the top of it in order to kind of execute what the left brain said to execute, right? I mean, and I'm just taking that as a cue when you say all of these interesting pointers on convenience and checkouts and reducing the time, cost, money, etc. Right? So
Yeah.
that's an interesting part, right? I'd even love to dive deeper into another part which is very interesting to your career and very relevant for a problem right now, right? Just fast forwarding your journey to Meta, and I'm going to go back to the clutter journey as well, because I have a couple of interesting points over there. But at your journey at Meta, you almost led a team of almost 80 plus people, to what I understand. That was like your team, which is a pretty large team, right? Now, in a company like Meta, which is extremely competitive, the talent has to be really top notch. You got to maintain the benchmarks of the quality of talent you have, right? I want to ask you this question about how do you keep on upskilling the team?
Yeah.
And especially in an era where you're already a tech company, you're one of the largest tech companies, you're an AI company as well. I would love to say that. And probably, and this is very relevant to the audiences today, because a lot of marketers have been asking us, you know what, we know about the innovation that's happening in the industry, but probably the team is not able to upskill that. So from the top to bottom, how did that upskilling angle work, and how did you maintain that benchmark of the quality of talent? Love for you to dive deep.
Yep. So so when I joined Meta about 3 years ago, I took over a team that was really focused on supporting small businesses, and they were working on a variety of different projects. And one of the things I thought was really important is to assess and really understand from a customer's perspective what we're actually here to do. When you think about Meta as a core business, the majority of their business is focused on advertising. And one of the aspects in which advertisers come to platforms like Meta, Google, and others is to get return.
Right.
So when you think about it, they want to pay the least amount of money to extract the most amount of value from the platform.
Right.
And focusing on customer value. So one of the things that we thought as principally is as a mission is to focus on how do you improve customer value.
Right.
And one of the things that I think the team benefited from is really just focus on trying to really understand the empathy and understand the value that you're providing to these advertisers. At the same time, I uniquely, and this has been something I've been doing throughout my career as a manager, I do IC work. So part of it is working alongside the team to help shore up and understand problems to solve and help drive growth within the initiative. So for instance, like the way I naturally work and develop the team is partnering with them. So I'll work alongside them. In some cases, I'll put my thumb on the scale in terms of helping develop roadmaps and then monitor and match across the way. And then I am also very open. The way I operate is generally I try to challenge them intellectually by asking them like genuine questions, showing interest in their work, and just continue to drive progress. We do, and within my team, we really focus on defining these, what I call L0 to L2s. Mm-hmm. So the L0s are obviously naturally things like total company revenues, but the L2s are focused on things that are more longer term behaviors that you want to be able to change and having strict goals against them so people can know and have benchmarks on what they should be accomplishing. You'll enter some organizations and some people will just kind of charter towards things that may or may not make sense, but we want to be very definitive around how do you drive impact within a company like Meta.
Interesting. And like, for example, could you also double down a bit more on how does the onboarding of a new person in a marketing team works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is also a part of this talent benchmarking exercise that I'm speaking of, because I feel like the first 3 months of a person in an organization, how they are briefed on to doing things, sets the culture of what they're going to do for the next of their career, right? So I mean, just wanting to ask a question on that.
I think that that it's going to vary by level. I could tell you my process that I went through when I first joined. So for Meta's great in terms of onboarding people. They have an onboarding process. My manager at the time, she connected me with a bunch of different leaders, and you had conversations. You met with the different teams. You understand their work. But after there, you're kind of left to your own devices to understand what impact looked like. So I actually, instead of just kind of chugging through and pushing through the work that you've done, I spent a lot of time just reading through like forums. I went through listening to calls because you can listen to different calls. I talked to a bunch of advertisers to understand what the benefits are. And then I took a step back and I said, hey, if I were thinking about this team as a business, what is a relative ROI that I want to be able to drive? So I essentially said, if I need to have a ROI that, let's say it's 8x ROI, let's make up a number. I need to be able to do these tasks. If I want 10x, I have to do these tasks. If I want to have flat, there's certain things to do. So I essentially gravitated to things I thought would be the most important, both for the customer and be able to validate the business themselves. But the process itself was essentially spending a lot of time with stakeholders, spending a lot of time with advertisers, spending a lot of time with the team to be able to develop essentially a structure that would make sense. As far as people in like earlier in their career, I really recommend just spending time with customers, asking people. You know, one of the things I think is really important when you're working in advertising business, you need to have an understanding of what it's like, the pressure. And I give you a few examples I've given to people there. You know, as early on in performance marketing, you know, I've lost my shirt. Simple configuration with campaigns. You know, literally, there was one time I lost, 30% of my budget in the first couple of days of the month, and I had to recover. And you really learn these lessons through mistakes like that, and you also could drive better empathy for these advertisers and these people's goals when you directly have to do that yourself.
So broadly, I understand customer obsession. That is like you speaking to a few customers, like a lot of customers, I would say. Internal teams, org structures, clarity of thought, alignment of what is to be done. I'm taking those things up as cube, right? I want to even ask you another question, which is very unique to your career, right? And that is also with your time at Clutter, right? I think you went in through an entire organization that you scaled marketing up. You also undergo an entire acquisition, merger kind of a thing by a larger company particularly. How does it affect the marketing org in general? I mean, I know when people speak about merger and acquisition, they definitely speak about the sales and the customer success, and they also speak about the CEOs and the governance and the management, etc. coming up. not a lot of it has been said about how does a transition look like for marketing organizations, right? So I'd love to ask you that question about how was the transition for you, and what are lessons you would take that you would and you wouldn't do if in any next organization had you faced the same thing, what would that look like?
Yeah, I would say anytime you go through especially a smaller company like Clutter, go through change of that pace, it gives you a great opportunity to provide clarity. Clarity for the people in terms of what their current role and their future role is going to be. Clarity for customers on what's going to change as a result of this acquisition. Clarity for the brand itself, because in the Clutter's case, they had to do a little bit of rationalization when you had multiple different brands like Makespace and then Clutter. Which one exists? Which one endures? And have a really conscious decision around like which one actually has the most momentum in the future. And that creates a lot of challenges. The way I kind of approached it was just spending more time with the team. For me, I had a small, very junior team at Clutter, and a lot of their focus was, will I have a job? What are we supposed to do next? So I just spent a lot of time answering as much questions as possible that you can. You can't obviously talk through the inner workings of the deal, why decisions were made, but as much as possible, you want to have empathy and give them time to be able to support them throughout the process. And the same thing could be said with customers because they have the same confusions. There would be customers from the former company. They're trying to figure out, our price is going to go up, who's going to manage my relationship. So you just want to make sure that you're trying to answer as much of those problems and those questions in advance,
Right.
because they will exist and they will come pretty quickly.
Interesting. And very curious to also understand, right? For example, when you go through transitions like these, right, particularly with a larger company, right, how does it impact the culture as well? I would always point out in this way, see, marketing orgs are ideally built on culture, and that culture ideally flows from tops bottom is what I've seen in most organizations happen. I've seen rarely that it flows bottoms top in that case, right? When it flows tops bottom, see, let me put it this way. Like, I've seen marketing leaders of two kinds. There are one leaders who are like you,
Yeah.
who are the more calculative, left brainer, mathematical, etc. Right? There's another set of marketing leaders I've seen who are more brand oriented, which is their right brain is more active, particularly. It's not that you have just one of them; you have one better than the other, kind of a thing, right? So I've always seen that the teams effectively inherit that from the top, right? Now, of course, there is a team like a Clutter, which is a fast moving organization, had these things across set as a culture. How did that culture change in a newer organization which was larger? And I wouldn't say the bads of it, but I would say still about how do you go about that change management with people around the board. Of course, you see a lot of iteration, you see a lot of people not being aligned to the vision. Like you said, you have to align them with things around the board, but like, how do you go about that culture management across the board?
Yeah, I think it's going to vary. For me personally, the way I kind of like to operate, I like to be in a very open environment. I really appreciate when people who are direct reports, ICs, just give me direct feedback all the time. I highly encourage that. Very collaborative, very fun.
Yeah.
So it was interesting story. So most cultures, you kind of go in there, people are trying to get a feel for who you are, how you operate.
Right.
And, early on at Meta, when I first joined, people were just trying to get a feel. And we had to break through like actually an offsite. And
Interesting.
and one of the ways I kind of do that is just like, I don't take myself seriously. I don't ask anyone else to. I will say when I think about the work, I want to drive great numbers and drive impact. But the big thing I'm trying to do is break down these barriers and give people like the opportunity to be themselves so they could drive the best amount of work, best quality of work. And there's certain pivotal moments in each one of the times I work at different companies where you see it. So in the case of Meta, it was like after our first New York offsite. For Clutter is actually after a photo shoot we actually did for there's a show on Netflix called Instant Dream Home, and we had integration there. Literally, that was the first thing I did there was nailing this integration, and we were on film. And you kind of break through and you spend more time with the people, and they realize who you are. At Walmart, for us, we would spend a lot of time going to Vegas to try out stuff with the behavioral science team to really understand and have empathy for how it was. And we just have some jokes where we work with like store associates and customers, and sometimes we get really harsh feedback from customers. We kind of share laughs and have dinner afterwards. So you kind of see these seminal moments of where you can kind of bond and just be very open with each other. And one of the things I'm really happy about is I'm very close with everyone I have worked with in the sense of like I feel like they can speak to me about anything. I'll be able to respond. They know more about me, obviously. And then I've seen from each interactions, when you do have that moment, the work just gets way better, way better. I feel like I had this saying. I actually spoke to someone the other day. He's like, Rick's really tough, but really fair at the same time. And I think when you think about all those aspects of giving people the space to be able to give you feedback, to be able to do their best work, and then just give them feedback, I think that's the best thing you could do.
Rick, I'd just also love to ask you, you mentioned about this first principles aspect in marketing, right? And you speak a lot about it, right? Um, Most people firstly don't understand what first principles unless you're working in a consulting firm. You don't understand what a first principles is. Could you tell what first principles in marketing means like, and maybe illustrate it with an example that has happened in your life, particularly on saying, you know what, the problem was so simple that you just put a first principles thought, a very like a solution that you thought of and it worked, or maybe it failed. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just leaving it either open to you, but could you demonstrate what a first principles thought process in marketing looks like, particularly?
Yeah, so I would say it's going to vary by the business. So on the retail, you kind of want to do what you can to drive comp and beat comp and drive those long-term behaviors that's focused on profit.
Right.
At Meta, it's totally different, and advertising is totally different. I would say, without disclosing some of the confidential pieces of some of the work I worked on, I'll give you an example. So I had this concept, which is like, how do you not chase bad money? And what I mean by that is, let's say on the retail side, you may spend a bunch of effort to try to sell products that you have excess inventory on. And I can give you a bunch of examples of, like, for instance, there's a certain merchant who's trying to have us sell snowblowers when there was like a very low snow season.
Right.
And it's like, well, I could support this, but it's bad money. When you think about advertising, getting an advertiser to spend more money when their target return is meant to be 11, but if they spend more money, the return will inevitably go down. That's actually bad money to me.
Right.
So when you think about like where you want to bet on customer value, and then you have to balance against the company priorities, but you have to think specifically around those two aspects there. I think that's really important to balance. I think too often people get focused on like the individual goals within the company and they elicit hometown bias. So
Right.
saying, oh, this is the best thing. I need to promote this thing. But ultimately you have to take a step back and say, all right, what's good for the business and what's good for the customer at the same time.
Interesting. And could you also share a bit more about relating it to my previous question on how do you instill first principles in people? Because a lot of people lack that and they're unaware of the fact that they lack that. So sometimes, especially with marketers, I have seen, because you've always grown up in so much of glamour, to be very honest, I would always call marketing as one of the most glamorous professions that we're around, right? I wouldn't say, like, don't take me the other way around,
Yeah.
but when I say glamour, I mean it's always that you are surrounded by so much of success at points that are there, and of course failures as well, but the success are celebrated in most cases in marketing, right?
Yeah.
I just love to understand, how do you instill this first principles thought process in people in an environment like that?
So within the team, I label it. I label what good behavior is and what things I think are more ancillary.
Right.
And the way we label it is through defining what those L0s, L1s, L2s are. And essentially saying, is this pursuant towards this L1 or L2? Or is it like added benefit, or is this an experiment? I love the experiment. I think failing at full speed is important, but you shouldn't just do something to do something.
Right.
There should be some thought in mind, and to that even end, there should be a success and fail metric. So often I preach to different teams, like, all right, if you're going to do this, why are you going to do it, and what does success look like, and what does failure look like? And then I ask them to say, measure what you think it's going to do, even if it's like completely made up. At least we can have a conversation,
right,
around if it's good. There's definitely a lot of cool things that could be pursued, but ultimately, like, you should be grounded on like, why we're doing this,
right.
And I think that is the easiest question, and it usually opens up the aperture for people. It's like, all right, I don't know why I'm doing this. I want to do this, and you're like, well, how are you gonna measure it?
That's interesting. I think let me move to the last question quickly. I mean, we're seeing this era of AI coming up, right? And with large enterprises and people like the customers that you might have worked with, especially companies like Meta, right? There's a lot of hype about AI. But I was at Cannes recently and I spoke to like a bunch of marketers over there. I realized one thing, that organizations are expecting marketing teams to lead on the AI front. Marketing teams themselves are kind of clueless on what exactly is to be done. I mean, they're buying products, they're buying point blank tools, etc. But that real AI transformation is not happening.
Yeah.
After a point in time, it's effectively become a productivity optimization game that's coming in. But like, is that really a transformation? I still question that, right? I'd love to understand from you, how do you look at it being a marketer and also selling to marketers? You've been at the convergence
Yep.
of both of them, right? How does it work? And what are your thoughts particularly on this AI bit?
Yeah. So the pace of change with AI is unlike anything I've seen in my career.
Right.
There's been trends that have come and gone, and this one seems very, very durable. When you think about starting, low stakes, low reach work and proof of concepts are something that marketers could be doing. I think I encouraged my team and other teams and everyone I know just to try all these different tools.
Right.
I built a bunch of AI agents to check real estate prices for refinance rates for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm literally deploying these different things and trying out which one works. I think for marketers, they have to figure out where it fits and then fits within organizational policies as well. I think it's unknown where it's going to go, but there's a lot of certainty around that, the jobs of the future are likely going to be AI native.
Right.
And we need to be flexible in terms of how you approach these things. And a lot of the historical things in terms of rigidness and processes will likely go away.
I like the word you said, AI native. We call ourselves an AI native marketing company. So then I keep on writing on LinkedIn about this entire difference between AI enabled and AI native. And I think most companies are AI enabled, but they feel they're AI native. And the fundamental difference being AI enabled is just point blank tools being used by multiple people in the organization. So it's more like you duct tape yourself into an AI.
Yeah.
But like AI native is when you build with AI in that case, right? So I think thanks for using that word of AI native. Definitely relate to that a lot of it, right? But moving on to the last part, I call it the more fun part of the conversation, particularly, which is the rapid fire question. I'm going to shoot out like questions to you. You get like 5 seconds to answer every question. It's going to be simple answer. These are not really tougher questions, but this is more from understanding maybe Rick better. But we'll go about 6 questions in total, 5 seconds for each question that you get to answer. And
Okay.
this is going to be everything around. I call it the most fun part of the conversation. So what's your favorite comfort food?
Brisket.
Oh, nice. Best holiday destination in the world?
Thailand.
Thailand? Oh, nice. Any particular place in Thailand?
Bangkok. We like, my family like to go out fine dining. It's like the best bang for your buck.
Uh-huh.
Like you can go like Michelin star.
Yeah, especially for Americans, I think that looks nice. Right?
Yeah.
So that's there. What are the 3 tabs that are always open on your laptop? And that cannot be your email and your Word docs, etc.
Chat GBT. I use it often. I have a separate area where I talk to my son. I talk to every day. So I hope to be able to gift him this at some point.
Mhm.
He's 11. So at some point, hopefully he'll be able to talk to me.
Nice.
I really hope.
That's super good, by the way. You can actually label that project out.
That's what I've been doing. It's just saying, it's called Dad. I leave Gmail open. It's the same. I actually write to him every day as well. Sports blogs. I go to Southside Sox. I'm a White Sox fan, just like Pope is. So I look at that often. I browse. And then mostly for me, I look at X just to see what's going on from a trends perspective, what's happening for news.
Favorite album, favorite singers of all time?
Um,
Who would you like to join the band with? I would ask you this way.
I like up and coming artists. So when I used to live in Chicago, I would go to a lot of shows. For me, when they get too big, is when I start pulling away.
Uh-huh.
But there's a bunch of shows that I've seen that really changed a lot of things. I saw Bruno Mars and John Legend before they got huge. And I followed their career arc, and I would love to see them in concert now, but I saw them when they're at 100% shows. So I really like, seeing these people and their flow and their moment. So anytime I have a chance to go see live music, especially for unknown artists, I'll take that.
Awesome. And if not a career in marketing, what would you be doing?
Maybe a chef or a lawyer. So I cook. I make like misos. I make hot sauce. I actually just hosted a 4th of July party where I had smash burgers. I invited like 50 people. I just cooked the whole time. I think the most noble thing you can do for someone is feed them. In terms of the legal aspects, I do think there's I think I'll do this somewhere where I'm like ready to retire. But I think there's some things that are just you can pursue. I think there's a lot of justice that you can kind of resolve. But you need to have a legal basis to be able to do that.
Awesome. No, this is super great. Thank you so much, Rick, for for joining us on the show today. It was a pleasure having you, and of course, a very fun conversation. You have had a great career, and all the best for everything that you do ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.